Greetings and bienvenue, Midnight Crew. Thank you for returning to this broadcast. And welcome to new viewers joining us for the first time. If you like a video, then feel free to subscribe.
In this thread, post one-off weirdness stories. What I mean by one-off weirdness, I mean something strange or unexplainable that you bore witness to, that happened once and had no other recurrence, no overarching story or connection to anything. As an example, I'll start. I was out driving once, and I saw a woman jogging in the distance. As I was about 10 meters away, I glanced at her and she was jogging in slow motion, like you just slowed down a video, spending an unnatural amount of time in the air. I did a double take and it was still happening. I stared at her for a solid 3 seconds. I was too confused processing what happened to stop and look again. Pic-related was my face at that moment.
I have posted about this a few times over the years. When I was in 4th grade, 10 years old, there were some girls gathered by a wall of the school on the playground. I went to see what was going on and one girl was doing some weird shit. She was getting people's guardian angels to lift up their arms. She'd grab their arms, cross them, then uncross them, and then snap twice. She repeated it a number of times. Something like that, at least. Then, we'd repeat a prayer after her in Spanish. It was a primarily Hispanic school. At the end of the prayer, we'd close our eyes, spread out our arms against the wall, and ask our angel to lift them. I did it, and I truly felt someone lifting up my arms. All the other girls were an impossible distance away. I screamed. Everyone else had the same shit happen to them. They felt it and freaked out, when nobody had even laid a finger on them. It could have been a fatigue thing, but our arms were only slightly raised for a few seconds. It was strange.
When I was like 12 or 13, we had a camp out in a friend's back garden for her birthday. Bit of booze going about and some people got wasted, but most remained relatively sober. I had a few drinks but was totally composed mentis. Later on at around 1 or 2 in the morning, several of us were sitting in camping chairs outside of the tent, just chatting whilst those who got severely pissed were asleep on the inside of the tent. About 5 or 6 times at random intervals, there were these all-encompassing flashes of light. Very brief, lasting probably a quarter of a second each, no particular pattern to them. Happened over the course of maybe 10 minutes or so. They seemed to be coming from the sky, no obvious source. When I say all-encompassing, I mean that in the sense that it was literally a flash that illuminated everything, whiting out your vision for that brief period. We all saw it, never worked out what it was. Clear skies, no thunder. No idea what it could have been, but was weird.
Just finish a long-ass shift at a restaurant I used to work at. It was around the holidays and we were fairly busy. We're closed and I'm in the back room alone getting my stuff together before I leave. Putting on a heavy jacket since I walk to work and it's dark and snowing outside. There are about 3 or 4 other people closing up with me, so I'm not completely alone or anything. Not really important to the story, but just some context. As I'm collecting my things, there's still music playing over the speakers throughout the restaurant. At this point, I'm tired, but I was used to my hours and felt completely fine and normal. Downtown by Petula Clark starts playing. Have never listened to this song before, but I felt a wave of uneasiness the second it started to play. Instantly feel lightheaded and numb. I stumble backwards and almost fall down, catching myself on a shelf. Sit on the floor and feel very weird and paranoid. I have never felt this way before. It was what I imagine a panic attack would feel like, I guess. I sit and breathe until the song stops. That's when I get myself up and I instantly start feeling better. I have no history of fainting or anything of the sort. That wasn't the weird part though. Like 2 days later, guy in Nashville detonates a car bomb. Before exploding, he was playing sounds on a speaker. He was also playing downtown by Petula Clark. Probably a massive coincidence, but it's still very weird. I have never reacted that way in regard to anything before or since. Also, we were a sportsy bar place. Why did we have some old-ass slow 60s song playing? I worked there for over a year and that was the first and last time I ever heard that song play. All our managers were the only ones that could change the music. We're in their late 20s or early 30s, so it wasn't some boomer playing old music he liked. It still confuses me to this day. Hopefully I'm not some sleeper agent that activates to Downtown by Petula Clark.
It's not a cryptid or spirit story, but I do have one I can give you guys. A brief background though. In Ocala, Florida there is a legend or myth called the Rainbow Men. It sounds like the San Franciscan treat, but it's just a group of hippies that live out in the National Park woods swamp that are less tree huggers and more a band of druggies, murderers, maybe cannibals. So more like an LA treat or just an average group of Florida men. About 2 years ago I'm talking with some shooting buddies online and bemoaning the fact that I have nowhere to practice 3-gun. One of them gives me some GPS coordinates for a spot he's used in the past when he lived here, and I decide I should check it out because why not? At this point I had not heard of the legend, so I got myself strapped with gear, my AR, a 12 gauge, and a revolver because I can't shoot a semi-auto handgun for shit. I loaded up along with some water, rations, orientation gear, etc. in a backpack and attack vest, pile in the car and head out to the state park where I strap up and start marching in a woods. I have myself a nice time, and when it's about 6, before it gets dark, I pack up and start heading back covered in sweat and mud and stinking of gunpowder, and blood. It's been a great day and I'm enjoying my hike back now that I'm a little lighter after having spent a good $200 or more in ammo, so I'm thinking to myself and not paying too much attention as I walk through a deep ravine because climbing it. This is when I hear a rustling and immediately snap out of it, shoulder my rifle and insert the last remaining 30 RD I've got in it and start scanning my surroundings. Contrary to what you may think, Florida doesn't have very many large land predators dangerous to people save the swamp panther, which is sadly near extinct, but it's not impossible that one may be stalking me. I keep walking and I hear something again, scan, nothing. Then I check the ravine top. It's an old yuppie looking couple in white and pink and all manner of vomit pastel and neon mixes crouching down and watching me like it's TES or something, and they want a stealth bonus. I just do what comes natural without thinking and wave while saying hi there, how y'all doing? Trails that way. And point at my heading and keep on walking. The man screams run run. And they book it in the opposite direction. I don't think much of it, but when I describe the situation to a coworker when she asks what I did for my 3-day vacation, she laughs and says they probably thought I was a rainbow man, and so I went home that day and looked up the legend. I became someone else's Innawoods story.
The mid-20s. Grew up in nearby suburbs. Job is in the same suburbs. 10 minutes walk from my childhood home. Bar between parents' home and job. Sometimes I just get drunk at a bar then go crash on my childhood bed, so commuting the next day is easy. Walking to my parents' place from the bar one night. Kinda drunk, but not stumbling or slurring. 2 paths, shortcut or long route. Always take the shortcut and always have. Get to a point at the shortcut where you walk through a shaded alley. The shaded part is maybe 20 feet long. Never in all my life was that alley as pitch black as it was that night. An absolute void. Everything else seemed lit like normal, as though a black blanket was placed over an area. Unnaturally quiet as well. Thought it was weird but started walking towards it. All of a sudden my body locks up mid-stride right before setting foot in the alley. Every alarm in my body is suddenly going off all at once, screaming danger. Stand there frozen for what felt like 5 minutes. Snap back to reality and double time back to the start of the long route. Take a long route to folks' place. I still don't take the shortcut after midnight 5 years later. I have no idea what it was that caused that visceral reaction. The area is pretty heavily forested, but not a forest, if that makes any sense, with a creek nearby. I have gotten ominous vibes before in that neighborhood, but nothing that felt as actively dangerous and malicious as that.
This happened about 12 years ago, but I still remember it like it was just last night. It's not a great story, mind you, but it is real. I would work late at a big sports bar, so we'd close up around 11 or 2 a.m. depending on what holiday events were happening. This particular event happened around midnight or 1 a.m. The roommate giving me a ride home usually takes the back road parallel to the freeway to avoid traffic. Getting to a fairly secluded area where there aren't many houses, there is construction of a new community. Coming up to the end of the road we're traveling and approaching this area where the road connects to what is this small, cleanly built community with its own stores in the center of this little neighborhood. On the outskirts of this little neighborhood where there is still construction happening, there is a large hill of dirt coming up on the right side, passenger side, where I was sitting. I've always stared into the big sky wondering and waiting to see something unique or strange. Looking and wishing and waiting, what is that? See these strange lights illuminating in the sky. They're not bright enough to light up anything around it, but I can see them clear as day. Would guess that the lights are about 50 feet away and that the craft is probably 50 feet in length. Stare at the lights. Circular lights, 3 of them, white. Slowly rotating around whatever this thing in the sky is. Lights are rotating around this craft in a counterclockwise motion. These lights had a hypnotic illuminating effect. Not unlike the slow pulsing illumination of some light-up toys or Christmas lights where the lights slowly brighten and fade. In awe staring at this craft in the sky, can't make it out too well, but I can see the lights rotating around this thing. Realize I'm seeing what might be an actual UFO, get excited, tap my roommate on the shoulder and tell him to look. Roommate begins to stare with me as we're cruising down the road.
I'm glad you're here seeing this with me, or else I'd think I'm going crazy.
Try to make this thing out in the darkness. Looks like this thing is scanning the small hill of rocks, dirt on our right side. Can barely make out what looks like some very low light kind of ray or dim light cone coming from the craft to the hill. Scanning what looks like some shape at the base of the hill, looks like a cow. Huh. Look back to the lights, catch 2 of the 3 lights making the final rotation around the right side of the craft, and then darkness. Can no longer see any indication of craft. A literal second later, roommate and I exclaim about the bright orange light that started shining in the distance where we just saw the craft, hundreds of miles away. Roommate and I WTF the rest of the way home, mention it to each other every so often. I still reside in the same area, never see anything like it again. No longer in contact with that roommate. This whole sequence of events probably lasted a good 20 or 30 seconds. I'll never forget this strange occurrence, and I've tried to rationalize this a lot throughout the years. Man-made commercial craft usually, to my knowledge, have lights on them that indicate which side is which for other aircraft to identify them in the air. This thing I saw had none of that. Only the lights I explained, so I know it wasn't any of what you usually see in the sky. Another thing is that I live in Arizona and this wasn't too far from Luke Air Force Base, so it could very well have been experimental military craft, but I really doubt it. Keep your eyes to the skies, brothers. They're out there.
Small handful of personal ones, surprisingly. Before I hit 10, I was walking to my friend's house down the neighborhood when I saw a dog walk out of the bushes lining the road maybe 50 or so feet ahead of me. A Dalmatian. It sniffed around for a bit, took a piss on the bushes, then stood on its hind legs, took a few steps into the street, then turned and looked at me. Not shambling steps, very natural and deliberate ones. I screamed, pissed myself, and then ran back home crying. I still have no answers, and it haunts me to this day. When I was in college, I was stargazing out by a stretch of road over a swamp in Gainesville, and me and the girl I was with saw 3 green lights moving in formation, slowly spinning like it was a triangle lazily rotating through the air. They then started slowly doing individual figure 8s around each other that quickly sped up before they suddenly shot off in different directions in the night sky. For a few years back, I got night terrors of a tapered cylinder that would stand in the corner of my room but were filled in with TV static. They made no sound and emitted no light. I only had this experience 2 or 3 times though, and never again. Never did anything, just stood there. Like a rip in reality's fabric or something. Apparently though that's a common one. That Dalmatian still fucks me up.
Something not only I experienced. Be at my uncle's house. Old 2-floor wooden house that belonged to her grandmother. House has what I'd describe as an indoor balcony connected to my cousin's bedroom that overlooks the whole living room, kinda like PIC related but much smaller. Cousin is getting into poetry. She's very good apparently. We have diner and then start talking about random stuff. Hey, X, how about you read them one of your poems? My cousin gets all excited and runs to get her notebook. Reads poems, doesn't know a shit about poetry, so I don't know whether it's good or bad. As soon as she finishes, we all hear 3 claps coming from the balcony. Dad and Uncle freeze, look at each other, look towards the balcony. After a second or 2, they rush towards the 2nd floor. Register the whole house, no open windows, no open doors, nobody inside the house. There were 7 people inside the house counting both my cousin's family and mine, and we all heard it.
Be me. Natural resources student. Basically in school to hike. Go out into the mountains for some navigation stuff. Eastern Washington State. We all park next to a public campsite. There is a long abandoned camper trailer parked next to the site. Windows blocked out and looked moldy. Bullet holes as pieces of lead inside the firewood and the trees surrounding camp. The fire pit has a half-melted wig mixed in with the ashes like it was being hidden. Creepy, but we aren't in danger, so we just joke about it. Time to navigate. Have to follow a straight line off trail to a certain point. Heading southeast of the campsite. A few hundred feet away come across a gravesite. Pieces of rebar welded into a crooked cross. In a semicircle around the cross are half a dozen long dead canids. Can't tell what species, but they had been there long enough not to smell. Fur has different shades of brown. We continue on while discussing what it was. About 2 miles later we found a single intact oyster shell. The ocean is a mountain range away. Still no clue what any of this shit was about. I haven't seen anything like it before or since. Sorry to disappoint, but no pics and I haven't gone back to the site. My money is still on backwoods junkies being junkies, but that ritualistic shit with the bodies still creeps me out.
I used to work security in an industrial park as the only guard on duty. There were 5 or 6 corporate offices we would patrol, with large parking lots and some light forest in between. We would do the shift handoff at midnight in one of these lots, basically BS with the oncoming guard for a while to let them know if anything was going on. One night an extremely dense fog rolled in. You could only see maybe 20 or 30 feet in front of you before everything became a wall of white. Shit legit felt like the Silent Hill otherworld. So I'm finishing my shift at midnight, talking to the oncoming guard, mainly just cracking jokes in the middle of this giant, empty, foggy parking lot. Suddenly we both stop talking as this white orb of light floats through our very limited field of vision. It was shaped like an oval, maybe 6 feet by 4. Hard to tell exactly, and passed about 10 feet from me, moving from our rear left to right in front of us, then receding into the fog over the course of 2 or 3 seconds. It looked like a dim light without a source, like it didn't emanate from anywhere. Me and my coworker both stare into the fog.
You see that?
Yep.
You're gonna leave me out here with a ghost.
Yep.
Get in the car and drive carefully home.
Never talk about it again. That campus was weird. The cleaners refused to be in one of the buildings after dark because of creepiness, but I never heard any other reports of orbs, lights again, and we're out there every night of the year patrolling.
Summer of 2012. At then-girlfriend's place with mutual friends. She lives in the middle of the woods so far out in nowhere that you frequently see Amish people riding their carriages on the roads. Shitty cell reception if any, and she had to have a dial-up internet. Having a bonfire out in her yard near the tree line. Friend who hasn't been there before tries to get Wi-Fi on his phone. Tell him there is no Wi-Fi, she has dial-up and there are no close neighbors who would have it. He still picks up a signal that shows no name. What the hell? Connects to it, but it doesn't provide an internet connection. Hear a weird low hum in the trees. He drops his phone and yells. Says it got hot. I pick it up and drop it too, thing is hot as hell. Hum in the woods gets louder and we start feeling it pulse in our chests like when you go to a concert and feel the bass. Trees are blowing around like there is storm wind, but it's a pretty still night. Just as the hum gets to its loudest, it suddenly stops. He picks up his phone after it cools down. It died within that minute or so of hum, from 80% plus charge. Nobody knows WTF happened. Girlfriend says nothing like that has happened before, never heard the hum or got a mysterious Wi-Fi signal before. Talked to her again like 2 years ago and asked her about it and she said it never ended up happening again.
I went into a Tibetan curiosity shop with my family while we were on holiday in Belgium. The whole time we were in there, the shopkeeper stared at my brother. He wouldn't take his eyes off him. As we were about to leave, he summoned my brother over to the cash register and gave him an amulet. He told my brother to take it for free and never take it off. My brother didn't take the Tibetan man seriously. He kept the amulet but never wore it. Now he's plagued by shadow beings and his peripheral vision. I don't know about you guys, but if some mystical Tibetan dude gave me an amulet like that, I'd never remove it.
2 years ago. Bime live in a third world poverty land. The government introduced a receipt scanning method where you get 18% cash back on receipt. It's capped at a whopping monthly 35-ish. Good pocket money for parties and other dumb shit. It's actually quite hard to max it out. Enter random Sunday night. Be wandering with friends. Behind a sports bet. Notice weird black plastic bags in the dumpster with something white sticking out. Receipts from betting place. Infinite money glitch.avi. Receipts are upwards of 5,000. Me and friends max out our accounts in a day. Good times. Dumpster dive at Sportsbet every month. Fast forward like half a year. Normal Sunday night on my way to dumpster dive. Something's off. Everything is quiet as shit. The dumpster is empty, no trash. Impossible cause it usually gets emptied at 11 p.m. Walk down the street cause we all get weird temptation. A car keeps making circles around us for some reason. It circled us like 3 or 4 times. Noticed the air getting heavier like it was actually harder to breathe. Saw a car with impossible proportions almost like what kids draw. Get to the other dumpster down the street. It was littered with random American products that aren't available at our stores. For example, Quaker Oats. Don't mind cause we see the prized black bags. Jackpot.jpg. Pull out receipts. They're blank. They're blank. Now we're really starting to panic. GTFO. When we left the general vicinity, everything felt right again. To this day, no one has a clue as to what this meant. My face when we caught the attention of the simulation devs. My face when our infinite money glitch got patched.
I hope that you enjoyed tonight's broadcast. If you enjoyed tonight's story, then please subscribe to the channel as more green texts will appear daily. A new broadcast will appear when the clock strikes midnight Central Time.
Remember to check out the Odyssey page in the description for a second archive of the channel's videos.